Welcome to Boris FX Live. Sponsored by Dell, NVIDIA, and Intel.
Through today's stream, I got to warn you, it's a good one. Now, as many of you know, I'm constantly being stopped on the street and asked intricate, in-depth questions about 3D tracking and, well, match moving in general. Now, after about 20 minutes of constant grilling, I have to stop people and tell them, that's it, I'm tapped out. But today's guests would never have that problem. And instead of accosting them on the street, I'm inviting you in to ask them questions live today. Now, I'm going to be joined by benevolent genius Dr. Russ Andersson, creator of SynthEyes, the amazing 3D tracking software that is now part of the Boris FX Suite, and Matthew Merkovich, known to his friends as SynthEyes user #1, and to the rest of the world as an expert in match moving. Now, he's worked on countless huge Hollywood projects and high-end TV series, many of which he may actually be allowed to talk about today. And they're both going to be here shortly to answer any questions you have about SynthEyes and 3D tracking. Matthew's also going to be cracking open SynthEyes a little bit later and showing us some tricks. And even later, I'll be giving away a ton of free stuff too. So, if that doesn't sound interesting to you, kindly hit that thumbs up button to register your disgust and then quietly close the browser tab. For everyone else, here's how you get involved. If you're watching on Boris FX Live, what you want to do is you want to look to the right hand side or just underneath your viewer and you'll see a lovely little comment section where you can tippy tap your questions in there as well, and do the same, of course, if you're on YouTube. There is, of course, one big reason to be on the borisfxlive.com, and that is your chance to win. If you go there, scroll down to the bottom of the page and enter in all of your details, you can win one of our big prizes today. I, personally, am going to be giving away 2 one-year subscriptions of SynthEyes, and I'm also going to be giving away a 1-year subscription of the Boris FX Suite to one lucky winner. And that's everything that we make, including, here we go, SynthEyes, Silhouette, Sapphire, Continuum, Optics, of course, Mocha Pro, Crumple Pop, and many more. So that is going away to one lucky winner a little bit later on. So enter your name, stay tuned, and you could be in line to win. Of course, full terms and conditions are available on the website. And of course, we are live, so join us and ask questions in the chat. That is, of course, why we are here. And if you want to, and we have the right graphic for it, you may want to join our Discord channel as well. If we don't have a graphic for it, just head over to www.borisfxdiscord.com. Don't forget the www, otherwise you will go to the wrong place. www.borisfxdiscord.com. And of course, if you are an old person, you may also want to follow us on the other social networks of which we are a member, including YouTube, Facebook Meta, Instagram, that's that one, and of course, Twitter X. Perfect. Smooth as ever. This is why we do Boris FX Live so often. I also want to thank our sponsors before we move any further. Of course, NVIDIA, Dell and Intel for helping us make our live stream as smooth as it actually is. So thank you very much to all of our sponsors, especially to Dell Technologies, where they let us conquer the complexity of AI with Dell Precision. Power your passion and purpose with NVIDIA RTX GPUs. Available now. Thank you very much, Dell, NVIDIA, and of course, Intel. Alrighty, that is enough of my frivolity. Let's get on with the show. It is my pleasure to introduce our guests today. We have with us Matthew Merkovich. If you are in any way involved in SynthEyes, you will know this guy's name. He has been producing SynthEyes tutorials and helping out with SynthEyes since day one. Matthew, welcome to Boris FX Live.
Hi, Ben.
Hello, it's a pleasure to see you again.
Yes, thank you. It's nice to see you as well.
There we go. Well, I'm going to bring in someone else who you also know, and hopefully all of our viewers will know as well. He is the creator of SynthEyes, the founder, one might say. He's Dr. Russ Andersson. Hello, Russ. Welcome back to Boris FX Live.
Hello, Ben, and hi, Matthew. Always good to see you again.
So it's nice. It's one little sort of SynthEyes family here, which I think is really really nice. Um, Actually, like probably the first question I've got for you is how long have you two known each other for?
It's going to be 20 something
Yeah.
years.
20 something years. I remember the day I met you. I met you at NAB, at the National Association of Broadcasters convention. And you had your, the software you were working on at the time. And I happened to be using 3D Studio Max at the time. And so, we got to talking at that point, and you know, here we are. But that was like 20. I couldn't put an actual number on that. 20 some years ago.
Yeah, it's been a shockingly long time when to get back to it. Yeah, you think about it. But yeah,
Well,
time flies when we're having
I mean,
fun and doing 3D tracking.
I'm still doing it.
that's it. I mean, how does one get or find themselves in match moving? Actually, I'll start with Russ on that one. Like, why did you get the idea of going, well, actually, the world needs some match moving software?
Well, it's obviously it's something people needed to do as a problem, but my background goes back to robotics and computer vision, and back at that time robots were a big, hard to get a hold of and hard to do very much. So sticking to software was an easier sort of thing. And I started doing some entertainment industry related things back at Bell Labs, and kind of segued from there to film production related stuff. So
and Matt, I mean, that's a sort of question for you then. It's like, what drew you into 3D tracking? Was that where you started?
No, this is not where I started. I started, you have to really go back a long way to get to the root of this question for me, because I always wanted to do visual effects. But I always wanted to make movies in general. So I was always, had a filmmaker mind. So I always considered myself a filmmaker who did visual effects and not a visual effects guy who works in film. So I had to go back all the way to the first films that really inspired me. And they were all Ray Harryhausen films. So like a lot of stop motion animation, the Sinbad movies, a lot of, effects driven films. And then from there, it just became a natural progression as the industry moved toward using computers to doing visual effects and away from models and away from, shooting on film for that matter. It just became, a natural thing. And then when it comes to 3D tracking, all of the shots, all the hardest visual effects shots, the bedrock of every one of those shots is 3D tracking. So you would have to have the camera in the computer so you could add the CG elements, you could do the compositing, you could do whatever.
And what year was that? I mean, when did that, start to trickle into your mind?
I'm going to say in the 90s. It was at some point in the 90s, like the late 90s, 1998. I'm going to say 97, somewhere around there. I remember the first job I did with a visual effects supervisor named Chris Watts. And anybody should just Google him because he's, super important in the world of visual effects history. And I worked on Pleasantville with him. And he was the first guy to fully digitize every frame of motion picture film to do color. And that was Pleasantville. But he was visual effects supervising a Backstreet Boys video. And it needed to have 3D tracking in it. And I was trying to do this 3D tracking with the built-in tools in 3D Studio Max. and it was a nightmare, and it was just awful. But that was where it started. And then from there, like I've used every other 3D piece of 3D tracking software since. And then from there, once Russ started developing match moving software, that was it. I didn't need to look at anything else. I've still used some of these things as we moved up to the present, but literally I have never found another piece of 3D tracking software that comes close to the capability of SynthEyes.
What do you remember what the first project you worked on with SynthEyes was?
I don't remember the first project with SynthEyes. I remember the first, I would say the first big project that I did with the SynthEyes predecessor. So the software that came just before that, but also that Russ had done, was Minority Report. So I did, nearly 30 minutes of screen time of that movie has my fingerprints on it.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Russ, then sort of throwing it over to you then. How important in those early days was that feedback from the early users like Matthew? I mean, how did that steer the direction of what would become
that was
SynthEyes?
crucial. Back at that time, the amount of memory on the machines was very limited. So you see features like the region of interest stuff that were designed so you could do shots with film resolution, like on machines with, I don't know, a 256 meg discs, and I don't know, yeah, 256 meg RAM and not much more disk, and everything was really trying to crush and work with these limited amount of resources. The processors were not fast. So, there was a lot of concentration on being able to get stuff done. And, I'd hear what the issues were. I got this problem or that problem, and try and put in things to address them. And so that was key. And I'll give a shout out to George Port at PRP VFX, who did a lot of early Power Rangers stuff back in the day. So yeah, that feedback from customers all along has been great. And back at that time, everything was kind of shiny and new. And that was back when I actually heard from people of what projects they were working on. On the previous Sontech website, there was the credit list, and people would tell me, because it was due. They have to get help just to do anything, because it's all new. So we've got to move.
Well, it's designing it for those those lower power systems. Is that one of the reasons why everything's just so fast today, or with the extra development that comes on board with it, but like the foundations?
Yeah, that has been a focus all along. I'm kind of naturally a bit impatient. I like to have my computers wait for me, not vice versa. So the bottom line is that people have a life and they want to get back to it. Get your tracking done and be able to go home. And I understand that. And people tell me, I want to do this in one less button click. And they add up. So
Yep.
so, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
Try and address that.
Well, I'm just looking at the chat at the moment, and I'm already seeing like reactions to that, a couple of those shots there. One of them is, well, this footage is terrifying. So is everything trackable then?
Yeah. I think everything is trackable. I mean, if you have a polar bear at the North Pole in a blizzard at midnight shot on an iPhone, probably not. But at that point, you don't then you can cheat everything. Then everything becomes super forgiving. So when you get shots that are really, really hard, so to say, you know, after doing this for a long enough period of time, you end up with these process lists, mental process lists of this is the first thing we're going to check out, and this is the second thing, this is the third thing, and then you apply those skills in that order to any shot, and you'll always be able to track. There's the time it will take. The shots, nothing, I always say this about pretty much everything in visual effects, nothing is hard. It's either meticulous and time consuming, or you don't know what you're doing. So, but tracking is very much the same way. It's the same kind of thing. If you know, SynthEyes has the tools to do absolutely anything that you would want to do. And provided that the shot has, you know, visibly identifiable features that you can see with your human eyes and process with your brain, you can track it.
Yeah,
That's great.
I'd say that the things that I think are problematic are shots that are somewhere right in between being a tripod type nodal shot
Yeah.
and a shot that's a full perspective shot. People get in trouble people get in trouble with green screen shots where all of a sudden they push in and there's nothing but green. You know, that's where you see problems.
Well, I actually do want to get into the maths of some of this a little bit later, because I've got some math questions for you, but I don't want to scare away too many people right at the beginning with high level maths. So I'm just going to use this as an opportunity for everyone to start getting their questions in for Matthew and Russ right now. I can already see there's quite a few sort of building up already, which is excellent. But now is the time. Yep. So if you're watching on borisfxlive.com, there's the little chat box in there. Or of course, if you're watching it on YouTube, just use the live chat window straight on YouTube. All right. Well, one more question before we take a tiny little break. And we'll start with Matthew first, because I mean you've both spent a lot of time in the industry, but what changes have you seen, and how do they help people who are just coming into VFX now? I mean, this list could be endless. So let's maybe take one or two, shall we?
Yeah, that's a tricky, hard question, and it makes me immediately think of when I see other artists publishing demo reels online or putting out art that they have created, and I look at it and I'm just so incredibly blown away by it that I think, if I was entering the field now, would I even be able to get in? It's not a barrier to entry, but the expectation level is so high now. So to answer your question more directly, what that means to me is that that artists today have tools that are far, far better, and that they have trained themselves to use these tools. And we didn't have those tools, and we were working on machines. Like I worked on Babylon 5. Our machines had 16 megabytes of RAM.
Yeah.
And the colors were like indexed color, 16 color texture maps. So, right. It's, I think just the technological change is so, it's like, seeing people in horse-drawn carriages, and then, seeing people land on the moon. And
that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think that's actually that's a really good like a really good sort of metaphor for it, because I've been watching like some old music videos recently. I say old music videos, they're 20 something years old, but it was those ones that were kind of, when I was just getting in, those were the sort of things that I was aspiring to do. That was the work that I was aspiring to do. And looking back at them now, some of them are still amazing, but you can definitely see some of the cracks in there. But thinking back to the the computers that I started on, it's like it's amazing that we got anywhere close to where we are now, like with that. And it's all down to not the technology, not the software. It's the artist, the person who sat behind that computer and actually making stuff. And I think that's easy to forget a lot of the time, is that you kind of spend too much time focused on the hardware and the software, and you actually forget about the soft squishy bit in the middle, who's actually the one that is driving all of this stuff at the end of the day.
But Ben, there's something else I want to mention about that, because that just made me think of this. And what Russ was saying earlier, like we were using these computers that were really slow and like had such limited resources, but working on those machines with those kinds of limitations, from a technological standpoint, you would have to program the software to work better under those types of conditions. But the artists themselves had to make more efficient, economical decisions. And so I always tell people, like, I do a lot of editorial work. I've been editing since the 1980s. And I tell people that if you want to get into editing today, you should really like learn to cut on some sort of linear editing system, so you can start making stronger decisions. And the same thing goes for tracking. You have to make strong decisions that are correct up front, and it will speed up the process. So it's not just the technology, it's also the person and the people doing the work. So the technology helps, but at the end of the day, it's people making decisions. So
yeah. And it's there's that discipline that comes through repetition, and that's kind of it. And like I learned to cut on linear suites, and if you made a mistake there, you could get rid of it, but you could get rid of it if you noticed it at that moment. If you forgot about it, there was a huge problem of having to do everything all over again, or trying to cheat it and then missing that one field. So you got like a little flash field that you didn't see until it went out, which was always great. I mean, same question to Russ, really. Then, just like what has been the sort of biggest thing that you've noticed in the the 20 years that SynthEyes has been around?
I'm going to say, obviously you have the performance, and that's let us do a whole lot more. There's also a lot more connectivity in the software. Kind of as I look at it, you now have Alembic and Filmbox and all these different apps and a whole lot of features, and kind of the feature sets have expanded over time to be able to extract different kinds of information from the scene. And I'll give a little pitch for illumination detection for lights and for meshes and stuff that are in SynthEyes that people probably don't realize that's there to help me. But just a lot of the file formats, being able to acquire information from different kind of cameras, your Arris, your Blackmagics, Red, and being able to pull that in a very early stage of the whole shot pipeline. A lot of that stuff has really picked up over time. So it's and of course the other thing that's an old thing that's new again is anamorphic lenses.
Yay!
All of a sudden, everybody has to use an anamorphic lens for everything. I
feel like we can talk about that for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, hang on a second. Let's do some of that in a little bit. I've now got 1,000 questions all of a sudden that have dripped into my question sheet here. So here's what we're going to do. I think let's take a little break. So thanks Russ and Matthew for this section. We're going to take a little break now, and then when we come back, Matthew, you're going to be able to jump into SynthEyes for a little bit, and
sure.
I've got a question that hopefully you can answer in app, and we'll figure that out.
Happily, yes.
Excellent. Right, well, everyone out there, you are, of course, watching Boris FX Live. We are talking SynthEyes and match moving in general with Matt Merkovich and Dr. Russ Andersson. And if you want to, if you enjoy it, of course, you know what you have to do. It's that little thumbs up button. It's there. It's there on the YouTube view. It's just underneath. If you click it, you may be one of the lucky people that get a sprinkle of confetti that comes around. So just try it. See if you get the confetti. See if you don't. If you're watching on borisfxlive.com, do you know what? There's absolutely no law that stops you from going over to YouTube, hitting that like button, and continuing to watch on Boris FX Live. There's no law about it. I've actually checked. And of course, if you haven't already subscribed to us, consider it. We've got loads of SynthEyes tutorials coming up. In fact, we've got a SynthEyes series that Matthew's been working on. We've got another one in that series coming up very soon. If you want to be the first to watch that one, of course, you have to be subscribed. Now, we are going to be giving away a little prize in a second. I'm just going to be checking with Mission Control whether we are ready for the prize winner. It appears we might be ready. So let's get out that big tombola. You know the one. It's about yay big. It's got everyone's names in. It's got a big handle on the end. And we are going to be giving away a 1-year subscription to SynthEyes to one lucky winner. So what you'll hear in the background is you'll hear that tombola being spun and one name being pulled out. I, of course, can't hear any of this because obviously it's going on in the background. But I can tell you, congratulations, Rob Hendricks. You are our first winner of SynthEyes today. You have won a 1-year subscription to SynthEyes, courtesy, of course, of Boris FX. Congratulations, Rob. We will be in contact with you within the next 24 hours about telling you how to collect your prize. And Rob is in the chat, apparently. So congratulations. If you want to join us, we're still giving away tons of prizes. Actually, we've got another couple of prizes. If you want to join us and be in the draw for that next one, of course, go to borisfxlive.com, scroll to the bottom of the page and fill in all your details. It takes but a moment to tippity tap your details in there. Of course, full terms and conditions are found on borisfxlive.com. All right, well, let's get back to it. We are, of course, live. Keep your questions coming in the chat. I've got a lot to get through. And so let's answer some of them. Matthew, are you still with us?
I'm still with you.
Ah, thank goodness. Do you have your steam-powered computer ready and available for us?
I do. I'm sitting right in front of it.
Well, I mean, let's crank it up. I've got a question. I think one of the first questions that came along was about constraints in SynthEyes. Can you talk to me a little bit about constraints, please? What are constraints? Why would I use them?
A great question. And Russ, please do chime in if I say anything where you're like, no, that's not right. That's totally wrong. But the thing about constraints in SynthEyes, sometimes people think that by adding more constraints, they're actually helping give more information to SynthEyes, to the solver, to figure out what's going on. Like, hey, all of these trackers are over here on this flat plane on this back wall, and so I'm going to constrain them all to that. And then I'm going to, and they keep adding constraints, and then they end up over constraining their scene, and then everything fails. And they're like, why doesn't this work? So my approach to constraints is to trust SynthEyes and to let it do what it does best, which is to solve the shots. So you can, here, I've shared my screen. I don't have a scene open right now. I suppose I could open any old scene. Now let's open this scene. This might take a second.
Yeah, the screen's here. Or the screen was there.
Well, it was, and then
And there's
it
the scene.
opened on
Oh, there we go.
on the bigger monitor. So you could take any of these trackers, and the first thing I'm going to do is go to the floating constrained points view. And that's a floating window that I can now move anywhere I want. So you can see these are my constraints. These are the trackers that are constrained, and this will tell you what axes they are constrained on, the tracker number, and the position that it's locked to. So for me, a lot of people will start with like, this is my origin constraint, and then this is something on the x-axis, and then this is on the up-down axis, and they'll constrain it before they solve with only a couple of constraints. And you can do that, and that's totally cool. That's fine. For me, I usually solve my scene, and then the scene, people complain about this all the time. I see it in chats constantly where it's like, my scene's solved, but everything is like cockeyed and like oriented weirdly. And I'm like, that's cool. That's totally fine. But you can go into the 3D room and just hit the whole button and, move around your whole scene and move it wherever you want or rotate it however you want the scene rotated. And it'll rotate everything. And you'll notice that after I've made these constraints, by the way, that, I rotate this and the constrained point positions all update. SynthEyes is very smart this way. So I solve my scene, I orient it using that whole button, and then I lock some points and I say, good, these are all locked. And now from now on, and you'll see that if you go back to the first tutorial in the Intro to SynthEyes series, which you can find on borisfx.com.
And links in the chat, of course.
Yes, you'll see exactly how to do that. So, but the most important thing is don't over constrain your scenes. Don't add too many constraints. It's not necessary and it's not actually helpful, typically.
So when would you use constraints then? What's the function of those constraints?
Yeah. Let me jump
please,
in.
Please.
Yeah. The first use really of constraints is just to answer the question, how do I want this scene to be positioned and oriented in my 3D environment? Because as Matt's showing you here, all of those solves with the camera upside down, crosswise, at any crazy angle. Those are all perfectly good solutions. The camera matches perfectly the images, the 3D environment. So the whole point is where do I want that in my 3D environment that makes it easier for me to do whatever I need to do to the shot? And sometimes you need to do something on the ground, say, and you want to use the ground as the basis of your constraint setup. But in that same exact scene, if you want to put something on a billboard and the billboard's sitting out in some other place, well, maybe you want to use that as the basis of your constraint setup. So whatever constraints you want to set up, they're there to help you to make your job easier to do whatever it is you want to do. So that's really the first thing with constraints. So another way to look at it is also, if you're going to fly over a job site and where you're going to build a new building and take some video, and then later some guys are going to come and they're going to build the building, how are they going to decide where to put the building? You can be darn sure they're going to be out there with stakes and measuring and stuff and decide exactly where they want the building to go. And that same constraint process is kind of similar to the surveying sort of idea of, well, we need to decide where we want to put things so that when we add our thing in, we know where it's going to go and it's in the right spot.
I'll add a little bit to that. We can play a little volleyball back and forth here. But what I would add to that is a lot of people are going to be doing 3D tracking within a VFX pipeline where they're going to be sharing work with others. And oftentimes you will be given instructions like, hey, we need a 3D track of this. And you're like, well, what do you mean? I don't, okay, you need a 3D track of it, but you don't know what the focus is going to be for the guy downstream. You don't know that the billboard in the background is where the visual effect is going to be, which is why I always tell people, always request more detailed client briefs or supervisor briefs. So you know exactly what you're doing. So you know what constraints you could set up in advance. But a lot of times we don't know. That's why I solve my scenes without knowing and then orient them later, because I don't know oftentimes. So this is a philosophical question. You know, when might you use constraints and how? It becomes a, how do you approach doing a visual effects shot? How do you approach tracking a shot so it fits into a bigger pipeline of artists who are, you know, you might be the guy doing the compositing later. You might be doing the CG later, but somebody else might be. And so you want to make sure that your 3D track is going to work for them. And those questions are going to dictate where your constraints should be and that sort of thing.
Well, though, I mean that leads me to a different question. Then it's like match moving often starts sort of fairly early in the pipeline. Like who is it that determines what your deliverables are going to be? Then, you know, where does that happen?
Well, that's a technical question. So the deliverables question, you've got pipeline guys who, or ladies, who will be writing pipeline tools, Python or whatever, to like ingest your output. So there's that aspect of it. And then there's the visual effects supervisor who's going to know the show. The whole show is going to have, did I just make a thumbs up on the screen there?
Yeah, you did. And it's brilliant.
Yeah, yay, Zoom. But the visual effects supervisor is going to know the show's deliverables for the studio that's going to be airing it in some streaming service, or that's going to be, you know, putting it in a movie theater. So the deliverables question is a technical question that is dictated by somebody else. But our pipeline here within my operation is agnostic to those things. So we can plug into anything, and you should, you know, have something that's got that kind of flexibility, unless you're working within a bigger company, and then they'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is something then for Russ as well. Like when you look at exporting, maybe you can pull this up, Matthew. When you're looking at exporting in SynthEyes, there's a huge list of options. Where do those options come from? I mean, how do you decide which are the important export options?
Well, you have the first decision is what exports do you want to do in the first place, and you know you hopefully you're going to get some impact, you know, some input on that, and that might be, you know, what your own tools are that you're going to use, or whatever the client is asking you to provide. But the individual controls for that, you know, again, some technical questions based on what's in the shot, how you're handling lens distortion, how you want to shift the shot on the timeline, what you want the overall scaling of the shot to be. So there are a lot of, you know, nitty gritty little questions like that. Generally, you can start off with some default settings and, you know, give things a whirl and see if you need to adjust something, go and look for a control that might adjust that, and the odds are often pretty good. So there's kind of no hard and fast answer to that, that's for sure. So.
Well, this is another one then for the Brain Trust. When we're exporting out of here, questions have come up about lens calibration and how we deal with lens calibration. I mean, what are the options? Oh, actually, let's go back. Why is calibrating a lens important for 3D match moving?
Well, the whole bit behind match moving is that you want to be able to predict, you know, where any point in the 3D environment is, where it's going to show up on your image, and you the simplest assumption is that you're using a pinhole camera that is perfect, but reality is never quite that good. So we have anamorphic cameras. We have zoom cameras with different interesting properties. So in order to be able to make that prediction accurately, you need to know what the distortion is going to be. So, we get lens grids for different shots, but, really when it comes down to it, if you can at all, having SynthEyes calculate those actual distortion values is a far better thing, because the real details are going to vary, with the iris settings of the camera, with the focus setting of the camera, if it's the zoom setting. So it's hard to really do it super accurately. Even, if you have a lab grade setup and, you go around. Once upon a time back with robots, I used to have a robot that would go around and actually move things around to be able to do calibration. But, you can't really do that on a film set. The data really just isn't that great, 9 times out of 10, well, maybe more.
Yeah, it's if I may, and I even mentioned this in the last installment of the Intro to SynthEyes series, which is, lens grids are neat. See, people shoot lens grids. I've seen decades of lens grids in my life, but the calculated lens distortion values out of SynthEyes, just like the calculated field of view or focal length, is typically going to be more accurate than anything that you get where there are intermediary steps of technology. You get manufacturing errors in lenses, you get manufacturing errors in tripods, you get manufacturing errors in the camera body, you get manufacturing errors in the lens grid itself, and then and then standardizing, like how far, like what's your focus distance from the camera to the lens grid? How big is the lens grid? Is it an 8-foot wide lens grid with the focus distance being, 30 feet away on this particular focal length lens? Oh my gosh. By that point, those lens grids become like on-set camera reports, like general guidelines. Like this is in the ballpark of what you're going to see. And so that's how I treat on-set camera reports and even lens grids. It's like, does the lens distortion that we calculated, or does the focal length that we calculated, come close to what they provided us, just to check our work? Because I can tell you that the effective focal length, the EFL of the lens, out of SynthEyes is going to be more accurate than that focal length distance that focal length that they put on the camera report. That was very long-winded, and I apologize.
No, I think it's very important, and you also bring up an important point that everyone should watch your SynthEyes Essentials. The part 4, at time of recording now, part 4 should be going live in what I like to call very soon. That's the time frame for that. But yes, it should be out very, very shortly. Well, I hope that answers. I mean, I think there was like 3 or 4 different questions answered in there. So I think that was really handy, which was good. I've got one more question. Then I'm searching for it because I've actually got so many at the moment. One more question before we take another little break and we give away some more stuff, and then we come back. All right, this is about where are we? We have got talk among yourselves, everyone. Not just Russ and Matthew, but everyone in the audience. Just talk among yourselves. What I'm looking for is about object tracking. There was a really nice question about object tracking, which I will absolutely butcher now because I can't find it exactly. But can you talk to me a little bit about scene tracking and object tracking, and why they're different beasts, and can we solve everything simultaneously, and just dive a little bit more into what's happening there.
Yes, and you should. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can solve them simultaneously, and you should be solving them simultaneously. And it comes down to, you remember learning about forced perspective when I think there was a Schoolhouse Rock song about it. Like, it's about the size where you put your eyes. That's about the size of it. Oh, wow. I hope I didn't violate any.
Yep.
trademark.
I mean, we've just got a copyright strike again. So thank you very much.
Great.
For that.
But thanks. I'm sorry. I apologize. But that whole forced perspective thing, like if you see a helicopter and it's this big, like it's that big on screen, well, is it a tiny little helicopter, like 12 inches from the camera, or is it a full size helicopter way off, but still that size on screen? So the object tracks, and we could come right back to constraints at this point. The constraints will then, help with the scaling of that object, size. And then the camera environment has to be scaled to a particular size, so you don't end up with forced perspective issues. And again, Russ, correct me if I'm wrong, but solving them at the same time, well, all of those input parameters, like all the trackers from the object and all the trackers from the camera, are helping to solve the field of view of the camera simultaneously. So you can solve them independently and then lock the field of view and then force the other thing, but it's not really, I don't think it's a good idea.
You're solving the same field of view for the two things, but they can actually have completely separate relative scaling, relative distances, so that, as you said, it's the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids effect.
Yeah.
That they both get factored into the field of view of the camera, but the relative positioning of the object could be arbitrary, even for the same scene, the same solve.
Oh, Ben, I think you're muted.
Do you know what? I'm always going to do this. I said I was not going to mute myself today, and here we go. It's every single time. This is absolutely on brand for me. Now, I said I was going to talk about maths a little bit earlier, but I mean, without going too deep down that rabbit hole, Russ, how is SynthEyes getting that relative distance? How is it working it out between the scene and the object that could, as you say, just be far away and very big, or very close and very small? How do we
to start with, it's making it just an arbitrary decision, using a default scaling, the same way that it comes up with the default scaling for the camera solve. It's doing the same thing for the object solve. And if you're doing a camera solve and an object solve, basically they're kind of the same thing early on in that process. So it's the same sort of process of getting numbers that are roughly comparable to do that solve. And it's only later for you to decide, exactly how far should that be? What constraints do I want to put on that object that puts it into a good position and a good relative scaling? There are some tools in SynthEyes that let you take advantage of little odd snippets of information, like if the object is stationary for a little bit while the camera is moving, you can use that to pin down the relative scaling, some other sorts of things like that. But at some level, you might have to eyeball it. You might have to use a onset measurement, knowing what the size of a desk is or whatever, something like that. So one way or another.
I mean, Matthew, in some of those shots that we saw earlier, you've got a lot of objects moving through the scenes.
Yeah.
Was that a lot of constraints? Like, I mean, like Russ was saying, is that how you approach some of those shots?
I think of there's a shot that was done for the United States Postal Service a long time ago, and it's with all the boxes moving on those conveyor belts. It's on my reel. I think it was
Brian,
one.
run VT.
Yeah. It was one of the clips I saw earlier, and I don't know where that was, but with those shots were actually tracked using a mixture of camera tracking, some object tracking, but a lot of GOH tracking actually. Because with GOH tracking and using constraints, I can constrain the solution of a GOH track for an object to only move on one flat plane and not, when you don't have enough information to really solve it in 3D space. So that's how those were done. And there were, scores of boxes and some of those shots. But it made it totally possible to do. And I'll add this because now I see that this shot is up, or this shot right here, this first shot of the car. So the car model that you see there was actually supplied by Alfa Romeo. So this is the car model. Or if you get LiDAR, like in the other shots, if you get LiDAR, boy, man, nothing beats a measurement based on the speed of light, because that's super accurate. But then you can, in SynthEyes, you can just say, you can poke the object and say, this tracker exists in space right here, and just touch the object, and it'll put a constraint right there. And if you put in enough of them, like here's another one. This was also GOH tracking with models that were based on scans from on set, but also, with the GOH tracking, this is also another GOH tracking shot. So it's a matter of using these tools in concert with one another, and constraints and lens distortion calculations. And it all becomes part of this process list. If you do this, you do this, you do this, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll always get, good results. But SynthEyes has all the tools to do those things. So it's great.
Okay, well, we've got to take another little break now. Perhaps during this break, if you've got a shot that's got GOH in this, like these have sparked off some interesting conversations in the chat. So if you've got something you can show us in a little bit, that would be lovely. In the meantime, I'm going to encourage everyone who hasn't done so already to do two things. One of them is to hit that little thumbs up button. Obviously, you've been here a little while now, so you're enjoying the chat as much as I am. So yeah, just give us a little thumbs up. Everyone is appreciated, and also consider, if you haven't done so already, hitting that subscribe button as well. Yeah, like I said earlier, we do have a full SynthEyes getting started course that is dripping out at the moment. And if you want to be the first one, I'm not going to just say what I was about to say. If you want to be the first one to see the rest of the course, of which we have 3 already, then hit the little thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button, of course, to be one of the first to see it. Alrighty, I'm going to give away some stuff if we are ready to give away some stuff, which I believe we are. Excellent. All right, this is our second 1-year subscription of SynthEyes that we are giving away today. And what I would like to do is I would like to hear a drum roll. I would like to see that tombola just rolling around, and I'm going to give away this copy of SynthEyes to Esteban Krop. Esteban, congratulations. You are walking away today with a 1-year subscription of SynthEyes. Congratulations, Esteban. I hope you're in the chat. If you are, let yourself be known. Congratulations to you. Yes, like all of our winners, we will be in touch within about 24 hours to tell you how to claim your prize. So that's great. If you haven't won so far, there's still time. just go to borisfxlive.com and scroll down to the bottom of the page and tippy tap all your details into the little box there, and we are giving away a 1-year subscription of the Boris FX Suite. That is everything that we make, including SynthEyes, but also Sapphire, Continuum, Mocha Pro, Silhouette, Optics, Crumple Pop, Particle Illusion is in there as well, and I'm sure I've forgotten something as well. We've got too many products. I should. What I've got some stickers. What I'm going to do for the next stream is I'm going to put a line of stickers just out of view so I can remember all the products that I actually have to do. All right, you're watching Boris FX Live. We are talking SynthEyes. My name is Ben Brownlee, and we are talking with Dr. Russ Andersson, founder of SynthEyes, actually creator of SynthEyes, founder of Sason Tech, which is now part of course, the Boris FX family, and Matthew Merkovich, commonly known as SynthEyes user number 1. I was going to break out my Spanish there. I think this stream is going on. It's gone on too long. I think we're going to have to get a move on. All right, it's going off the rails. Matt, have you had a chance to look at some nice GOH shots? Possibly.
Okay. So here's the thing about the GOH stuff. I don't have anything to show you. But
perfect.
Yeah, right. It really, if you go to my YouTube, like from years and years ago, there are a number of GOH tutorials on there on how to do like deformation tracking. So you do an object track for your head. It's my head in the case of those tutorials. And then I'm moving my face around and I'm tracking features like my eyebrows, and I'm using that to distort the underlying geometry. But these, you can see that it's possible, but the process of going through it and showing how to do it really does warrant having a proper tutorial.
You mean a 7-part head tracking tutorial?
No, it doesn't even need to be a 7-part head tracking tutorial. But we can strike a happy medium, because there are simple things you can do. And if you look on the Boris FX website at some of the older tutorials from Russ, there's a great tutorial in there on how to on a plane of a bouncing tennis ball in a track. I'm sorry, in a tennis court, how to track that with just one single tracker and get the 3D motion of that tennis ball captured, all with GOH tracking. But it's not a question that you can answer very quickly, because it's a complex operation. It's not complicated. SynthEyes does make it straightforward and simple, but it's definitely not a really easy thing.
We're not breaking it. We're not breaking it in 5 minutes, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get a worthwhile answer in a minute or 2 minutes. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I forgive you.
All right.
I don't know where the chat's going to, but I certainly do. Well, let's move on to the next question then, which is any tips for modeling with SynthEyes? I think we saw a little bit of modeling in part 3
yes.
of your series.
And I think that level of modeling is what you should expect from SynthEyes. So when it comes to modeling and SynthEyes, I have to manage your expectations. SynthEyes is not a tool that was designed for doing complicated 3D modeling. And I even say it in the tutorial. If you're doing complicated 3D modeling, because, there's nothing like, hey, I want to bevel that edge and I want to do some extrusions and, probably export into your favorite modeling app and finish up your modeling there. But to do proxy geometry and build out things for previews and to pass off to the next guy in line so that they know, where they should be placing their 3D elements, that tutorial covers it really pretty well. And I think that was part 3.
That's part 3. Yeah, part 3 was excellent with that. Moving a little bit. Oh, sorry, go for it, Russ.
Yeah, I was just going to throw in one little point on that. SynthEyes is set up for, live action shots. So, there are photo modeling applications, and, for photo modeling, you can envision something that's on a turntable spinning around. There's no lighting changes. There's nothing, everything's perfect. But in SynthEyes, the expectation is, well, there's stuff blowing up. There's people running around, and yet we still want to do some modeling of something that's in the scene, because you need to do something. So there's some different sort of application areas involved in these two things. So it's kind of a different, you have to think about what's the right tool for the right situation.
That's it. I mean, with that in mind, then what about bringing in other models that you've got, or LiDAR scans? How's that process?
I can't, if I might interrupt and chime in immediately.
Please.
Having, and I mentioned it earlier, nothing beats the speed of light when it comes to setting up constraints and measurements and that sort of thing. But the LiDAR, anytime you can get LiDAR, boy, anytime I get LiDAR, I am so happy, because that's the world. That's really a really accurate representation of the topology of the world. And, bringing those things in to SynthEyes is just it's a button click. It's just, what is it? You go to file,
import mesh, and you're good.
Import mesh, and then there it is. And then that's it. And then you're done. So that's as easy as it is.
I mean, okay, do you need like a big, huge LiDAR setup, or could you possibly get away with, the LiDAR in an iPhone, for example?
Yeah, I've done it. And Russ has done it. Yeah, absolutely. If you can export an OBJ file, or, any LiDAR binary file, SynthEyes can import it. And that's it.
Yeah, I'll point out the stuff you get out of your phone is not exactly the same as what you get from a feature film setup. It is kind of stitched together, and it's kind of like 1%-ish sort of data, maybe. So there's going to be some drift in the long term, but especially if you're around some compact area that you can view from some different angles, then I think it comes out really pretty well.
Well, people have been asking about photogrammetry as well, and I think this is probably a good a time as any to talk a little bit about photogrammetry. I mean, Russ, where does photogrammetry sit within SynthEyes and within a SynthEyes plan?
Well, the simple answer to that is, yeah, SynthEyes is doing photogrammetry all the time. It just has a lot of photos a lot of the time. And if you need to just work from a handful of stills, you can do that too. The feature is called survey mode inside of SynthEyes, and it lets you set up trackers across multiple stills and then still be able to solve them to get a 3D solution. So that, but ultimately SynthEyes is a photogrammetry application when you get down to it.
So, and we can export textures as well from the meshes that we create.
Yes,
you can extract them.
Yeah, you can basically take the photography that you tracked and use that to not just project like single frames, which you could if you wanted in SynthEyes, but SynthEyes will actually use the best information from all the frames to give you a really nice unwrapped texture map. You just have to, of course, have UV coordinates and that sort of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, that's actually one of my my favorite discoveries within SynthEyes, is that when we're doing texture extraction, you're not just picking up random raw pixels from a single frame.
Yep.
You can set it up to actually go over finding the best pixels, or averaging out pixels, which gets rid of noise and all of that fun stuff.
Yep.
I enjoy that a lot, by the way. That's
Right.
um I had another question that was popping out
Well,
from
then
that as well.
while
But yeah,
you're
you carry on.
thinking, also on my website, on my YouTube rather, on my YouTube, I did a tutorial which was kind of tongue in cheek, but it was like how to scan your own head with SynthEyes. And so I'm actually doing exactly that. I'm taking a base humanoid model and then using the modeling tools to, to mush that model around to match my own face, and then extracting the texture map of my own head and putting it on that mesh. So that would be a place that you could see that all in action.
Mm.
Might be a little tough on your hair at the moment, but
Just we got beautiful faces right there. Look at that. Look at that. See, this is why we have Brian in mission control, because look at that.
Love it.
He's trying to.
Wow.
He's got the Google foo. Look at that. I like your lighting setup a lot more now, I've got to say.
Yeah. It's...
All right, I've actually remembered the question. I found the question again that I was looking for. It's a little bit of a different beast here. If we've got multiple takes taken from the same scene, how best would we be dealing with that? So we've got the one scene tracked, but we've got multiple cameras. What are we doing there?
I just did this. Like I delivered this shot. I delivered these shots yesterday. And again, if on my own YouTube, you'll see a set surveys or how I shoot set surveys. And that's a series of videos as well, 3 videos. How to shoot the survey, how to process it in SynthEyes, and then I believe the third part is how to merge the cameras together. And it's really easy to do. You basically have a master shot, which would be your survey shot. So if you get a bunch of shots, and hopefully you're getting them all at the same time. Hopefully, if you're working on a show, you're not going to get dribs and drabs of shots coming in. You're going to get all 6, all 10, all 40, whatever shots. That way you can audition the shots and say, hey, this shot right here has the greatest depiction of the most parallax camera move with the most visible features, with the deepest depth of field and the easiest shot to track with a lot of parallax. And now we're going to make that the master shot, the survey shot. And then from there, once that's done and that becomes your master shot, you can add all your other cameras and you go in and I always name the cameras for each shot. And I say, this is camera shot 001 and this is camera 002 or whatever. Then you can linking the trackers between them is super easy. You can do it really fast. So,
I mean, Russ, do you have any I know we've got a video about April tags on our YouTube video. Is there any sort of like common denominators that you would think of when we're doing like a multiple cameras over the same scene to make things easier?
Well, certainly, the process that Matthew just described is I think the typical one. But if you have control over the environment and the set as it's being shot, then yeah, you can use those April tags out in the scene to make it easier to identify what's what. And you'd only need a couple of them in there to be able to do that. You just have to make sure that those are adequately visible for the code to be able to be read. But that was definitely a customer request from some years back that they were doing a setup and wanted to be able to read those. So,
and somebody asked me 2 days ago, hey, can SynthEyes handle April tags? And I was like, funny you should ask. So, may have been a request from years ago, but it's something I just heard somebody ask for.
Yeah, I think that's it's a there's so many really useful things that are inside of SynthEyes that just uh, sometimes if you don't know what you're looking for, or if you don't know if it can do it, you just need like confirmation that you can do all of these things. And I think that's one of the things that we've been trying to do is sort of we've got so much uh, like video training material available from the old SynthEyes site that we're now moving over onto the Boris FX Learn YouTube channel. So this is separate to the main Boris FX channel. We actually have two channels. We've got the main one that you're watching right now, but we also have Boris FX Learn, which handles sort of longer series. It's got like rotoscoping and paint tutorials in there, but we also have like the sort of the longer SynthEyes ones, plus hundreds of other videos that are going back, to sort of help through. Oh, and there's my little face as well there. So yeah, we've got a ton here. If you want to see certain playlists, let us know, because we will get in the groove of actually making some more custom playlists for what people need. So yeah, a lot of this stuff, it's already there. Oh look, there it is, April tags straight away. So a lot of this stuff is already there. You just have to know where to look. And the first place you should look is actually the first place you should look is the manual. The second place you should look is Boris FX Learn, and that will be a big help for everyone. Can't recommend it enough. Another good use of that subscribe click. I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying you should. All right, let's move on to another question here. What's the easiest way to add deformation to rigid head trackers, or rigid object trackers, or rigid object meshes, I should say? Ooh, that's an easy question.
Well, there are two answers to that question. The first answer is, and there's a bit of a philosophical answer to this, so bear with me. But the word match moving, like there was a period of time where people would just describe anything as match moving. Like, I want match moving for this. And you're like, okay, what exactly do you want? Oh, you want a rigid 3D camera track. Okay. Oh, you want an object track. Okay, there's that. And then there's rotomation, which, you get like a base level track of maybe an actor's torso, and then you have a rig you attach to it, and then you have an animator come in and animate a rig that is deforming to match what you see on screen. And that's one way to do it. If you were going to do this in SynthEyes, however, which is, you don't get that level of, I don't want to say you don't get that level of control. It's just, I think it would be a little more difficult to do in SynthEyes. You end up using GOH tracking. But once you do that, and like if you're just, for example, doing the deformation of an actor's face, of their eyebrows moving and their nose flaring and their mouth, you could do all of that with GOH tracking pretty easily. It's just going to be meticulous and time consuming because it just takes work. But it's not hard. It's just you have to do the work, and then you can isolate, like, well, what do you need? When we talked about this earlier, like, what exactly do you need tracked? Like, what is this track really about? Because if it just becomes like a generically track this whole thing, you can end up with so many sub objects and like have this unbelievably complicated rig that you really don't need, because all you really needed was to have, you're going to add a bruise to this cheek. So, oh, we tracked his whole face. Well, that was a giant, waste of effort. But if you know the region that you're tracking, you can limit the number of objects you add, and it'll speed things up, and you can do it very easily.
I mean, is that more commonly done once it gets a little bit further down the pipeline, or is it all project specific? Do some people ask for for the animated meshes, and others just ask for the sort of the base mesh.
Yeah, everything is object, or everything is shot specific, project specific. So everything that, and it's just like our bidding process. Sometimes people will just look at like a whack of shots and they'll just say, oh, I don't know, like this much. And then let's put a number out there. But we go through every single shot and look at every frame and look at like what's playing out and what they need. And then you get a real estimation of how much effort it's going to take to get that shot done. And we're not wasting any time. We're not wasting any effort. So, and it's done on a shot by shot basis.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I've got a question that I can actually answer, sorry.
Oh, good.
Which is nice. I'm going to read it out. How much of SynthEyes is going to be integrated into Mocha, and what sort of features will be SynthEyes exclusive and what will be Mocha exclusive? I know this one. The basic idea, like if you don't already know, Mocha Pro 2024 added in some SynthEyes technology to redo the whole of the camera solve module. So the whole idea with camera solving inside of Mocha is that it's there if you just need like a basic camera solving. At the moment, you know, we're doing straightforward static scenes. You can come in, you can get power meshes, you can export out power mesh data straight out of Mocha Pro and into your 3D object with that 3D tracking. What it doesn't allow you to do is it doesn't allow you to go in depth into all these things that Matthew and Russ have just been talking about. We don't have like those sort of fine controls over objects or meshes and deformations in that same sort of way. You know, the whole way of doing lens distortion is handled differently in Mocha Pro and SynthEyes, and those are going to remain separate. You know, the whole point of Mocha is you getting a good 3D track export and then getting out again. If you can't do that with the data that you've got, there's a lovely little button for you straight in Mocha Pro which says export to SynthEyes. So if you've got any tricky shots that you need, you know, like we've said earlier, SynthEyes can handle any shot you throw at it. You just need to know what you're doing, take a bit of time. So if you can't do it in Mocha, you send it to SynthEyes. It's one button press, boom, thank you very much, and then you get it sorted there. So there are going to be big differences. Like SynthEyes is still going to be the one you're going to go to if you are looking to do, you know, big heavy duty match moving. If match moving is your day job, you're not gonna be doing it in Mocha Pro anytime soon. That's for sure. I hope that has answered your question. I have lost your name. I'm very sorry, but I hope that has answered your question. Now back to the other stuff. Oh, here we go. I've got another good question here about tracking. What is the best approach to tracking green screen shots? And here's the kicker: without a visible ground plane. I'm going to send that to Russ.
This gets back to the thing with the coordinate system that I was talking about earlier. You know, the whole purpose of the coordinate system is to help you do what it is that you need to do. So the question is, well, if you can't see the ground, you know, that's probably not the thing that you want to base your coordinate system on. You know, you can only base it on things that you want to, that you can see. And perhaps you have an establishing shot from elsewhere that's going to let you assign some 3D positions to the things that you can see in your green screen shot. But it's a mistake to think that, oh, just because I can't see the ground in this particular shot, that, oh, you know, I can't do anything now, you know, or that, oh, you know, there's some sort of problem. No, you know, it just means, well, you have to base your coordinate system off of what you can see, and then you have, you know, freedom to do that in whatever way that makes the most sense to what you're trying to do.
Matt, any additions to that?
I will add in addition to that. So every time we get shots, we don't get LiDAR. So somebody says, here, track this. And they don't provide anything. You don't get any LiDAR, you don't get any survey photos, nothing, no set measurements. We'll put a 180 centimeter tall humanoid figure in there. And then in SynthEyes, there's an earthling. So I just, select the earthling and then we drag out an earthling. Yes.
No, I'm being the Earthling. I'm waiting for Brian. I'm waiting for Mission
what it
Control
is.
to cut back to me.
The earthling is raising its hand, wanting
There we
to
go.
use the restroom or something.
That's what the
But yeah,
Earthling looks like.
the
Yeah.
earthling looks like he's raising his hand to use the restroom for permission. So yeah, but we drag out a little earthling, make it 180 units tall. And I talk about this also in the first tutorial, the first episode or whatever you want to call it. SynthEyes doesn't have a unit system based on any, imperial or metric numbers. A unit can be anything you want it to be. So when we drag out something to 180, we just decide that's centimeters. And then when we send it downstream, we tell whomever, this is 180 centimeters. Or you can make it 1.8 and you could say that they're meters, units are meters. Be that as it may, we put that 180 centimeters tall humanoid in there and orient our scene so that it looks like it represents something like reality.
Mm.
And then that becomes the decision that this is the space. This is the, how you should drop your CG elements in or your 2D elements in that you're going to drop into the shot. Just orient them to this space that we gave you that is scaled properly and oriented properly.
Yeah, excellent. And that is, I think actually that is discussed more in episode or part 2.
Okay.
I think of your thing. I think, yeah, I believe. We see the little climber on the rock. It's very good, and it made me scared. The first time I saw that, I was like, no, don't fall. I'm going to give you a spot. He doesn't fall. He's actually all right. I've got a nonsense question for Russ then. How did you come about with that particular Earthling? And were there other candidates for an Earthling?
That was a convenient mesh that I cooked up once upon a day. And, I didn't want to have anything, somebody with their arms by their sides or something. I wanted to have a little style to the whole thing. I'll point out the one little gig with the Earthling is that it's set up so that it's to the top of his head. And you might think you get worried, we're measuring to the top of his hand. No, we think of all the details here and get it so that it's the top of the person's head. So, if you need to have a stand-in for Tom Cruise, you can make it one size, somebody else a different size. And it's by their head height.
Funny you should have mentioned Tom Cruise.
Funny how that happened.
Maybe it was a commentary on something, but I'll add this. I will add this. If you don't like the meshes that are in there, or you don't like the selection of meshes you get, you can have your own little mesh folder at your company, or even if you're just one person, just drop your meshes in there, and then you'll get those will be included in the list of primitives in SynthEyes that you can then just click and drag out. So.
Yeah,
and this is why I have my whole list of different types of cats. In my SynthEyes folder. So.
Yeah, just to point out, if you do file and then user data folder, you look in there. There's going to be a folder of custom meshes. So that's where it sits.
That's it. All right. Oh, we have rapidly run out of time. I've got so many questions we haven't got to. Okay, I've got one final question then, because we haven't got to all of them today. Possibly, could we do this again in the future sometime? Maybe.
Happily.
I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah, this
There
is
we go.
great. And I'll bring
Good.
some
That'd be
GOH
good.
stuff next time.
Yay! I think we're like, yeah, big applause in the chat for GOH stuff. There you go.
All right.
I want to say, yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It's been absolutely like fascinating. It's been illuminating, and I've yeah, it's been so good chatting object and scene tracking with the both of you.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.
I know where we can find more of Russ's stuff. Where can we find more of you, Matthew?
If you ever really want to reach out to me and ask me questions and talk about SynthEyes, really go to the Boris FX Discord and go to the SynthEyes channel, because I'm there. I'm happy to answer questions. I love it. And it's also a great community, and hopefully people will start answering each other's questions and interacting. So I like that. And anytime we can build this community, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I agree. I think the SynthEyes community on the Boris FX Discord is it is definitely a community. It's people who like asking questions and like answering questions, and they are sometimes the same people as well, which I think
Yeah.
makes a huge difference. That not everyone knows everything, and we're all here to support each other.
Yes. I just asked a
Right.
question yesterday. Like, I think I'm a dummy, but can somebody tell me how to do this? So yeah, it's absolutely true.
Yeah, so that's www.borisfxdiscord.com. That's the easiest way to do it. Remember the wwws. And we also have an invite link directly in the chat, but maybe that will disappear at some point. We don't know. I love the Discord. Definitely join us on the Discord. You'll see a lot more of Matthew's stuff, as well as we continue rolling out the SynthEyes Essentials course. It's so good. If you are just getting into SynthEyes and you've opened up the software and you don't know where you're going from there, I cannot imagine a better way of spending an hour or so just watching those, and you get within that brief amount of time, you get such a good grounding, not only on what the buttons do, but on how the software thinks and how you should be thinking about using the software. It's excellent. I'm really glad that you've been there to actually help create those. Much appreciated. I think it's very good. Well, I'm going to say goodbye now. Goodbye, Matthew. Goodbye, Russ. Thank you very much for joining us. But if you're out there, people, do not go anywhere, because we still have one thing to do. Actually, you've got to do one thing, then I'll do one thing. If you've been enjoying us up to now, then, and you haven't done it already, you know what you have to do. There's a little button. It looks a little bit like that. I don't have any animations that sort of give me a thumbs up. It's just, that's the like button. It's the thumbs up button. Everyone loves pressing it. You may get confetti. You may not get confetti. I believe the secret to the confetti is if you're subscribed to the channel and you hit that thumbs up button, then the confetti rains down. It may not be true, but yeah, it really helps us out a lot, and it costs you nothing. That's always the best kind of transaction that I like. Another thing that I like is giving away free software. Lots of you have been spending part of our time on the stream going to borisfxlive.com and joining in our giveaway competition down there. It's too late. It's too late to enter now. We've got one more prize to give away, and that is a 1-year subscription of the Boris FX Suite. That is everything that we make here at Boris FX, including SynthEyes, including Sapphire, Continuum, Silhouette, Mocha Pro, Optics, Crumple Pop. There's one I'm forgetting all the time. Oh, Particle Illusion, obviously, and there's obviously something I'm forgetting, but we'll get over it. We'll get over it. Let's go. We're going to spin that tombola for the last time today. We've already made 2 people happy. This is the last bit of the tombola, and the Boris FX Suite is going to go to Toby Newell. Toby Newell. I wouldn't have believed it at the start of this stream an hour and a half ago. If you'd have said Toby Newell was going to walk away with a 1-year subscription to the Boris FX Suite, I'd have called you a liar. But no, today it's happened. Congratulations, Toby. If you were in the chat, go wild, go crazy. Congratulations, Toby. You join our illustrious list of winners for the Boris FX Live giveaway. We will be in contact with you within the next 24 hours to tell you how you can claim your prize. Do not worry. That is the beauty of this system. We know where you are. We don't know where you live, but we know where you are. All right, that's weird. That's weird. Every time I try and get less and less creepy every single time, and it never works. All right, I just want to say thank you very much again to our guests, Matthew Merkovich and Dr. Russ Andersson. I want to say thank you very much to our helpers in the chat, Chrissy and Elizabeth, for making the chat go so smoothly. My name is Ben Brownlee. It has been my pleasure to host Boris FX Live again, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. All right, everyone. Bye for now.